Jacqui Just Chatters continues our radio mystery drama. If you missed the first episode, begin there. Previously, Alice drove up the Hudson Valley to visit her uncle, aunt, and cousin for Christmas. Her guest is Charlie, her beau, and a police detective. Arriving just as the storm made the roads impassable, Cousin Dorothy welcomed them herself because the staff was trapped in town due to the snow. Everyone is getting dressed and waiting for the gong to announce dinner.
Welcome to the National Association of Broadcasters Thriller Theater. This evening, our offering is the second serial episode of A Deadly Holiday on the Hudson. A big round of applause for our sponsor, Immaculate Lather. The perfect laundry soap flakes when you want your clothes as pure as your soul. Every box is guaranteed to be blessed by the clergy.
Mother, goodness, what are you doing carrying that soup tureen? Let me help you. Where do you want it placed?
Set it on the table for now. The servants called, and they said the roads are impassable. We are on our own tonight.
No servants? How will we eat?
The cook gave me instructions. The soup was warming on the stove, a roast with trimmings was cooking in the oven, and they left an apple pie in the pantry.
Only 3 courses? I suppose it's the best you can manage given the circumstances. It's no reflection on your reputation as a hostess. I shan't breathe a word of it.
Thank you, Arthur. I appreciate your understanding. I have a bit of a conundrum. A large roast is in the oven. I cannot manage that beast, and I wouldn't have any idea how to serve it either.
Speaking of which, since we don't have staff, how are we presenting the food? Do you want everything to be put on the buffet?
But that is for breakfast only. It doesn't feel right to do that for supper.
We could do this family style.
What is that?
Well, you park the soup tureen in one spot. The person nearest the bowl is in charge of ladling it out, same with the roast. One person puts the meat and veggies on the plate, and we pass them around. You'll get it in a jiffy.
You seem to know what you are doing, so I will put you in charge. There is a roast in the kitchen that needs attention. Alice, do you understand this family style of which Mr. Walsh speaks?
Yes, Aunt Edith, I can help. I'll be in charge of the soup. It's a good thing the staff arranged the table and started making the food before they left. Otherwise, what would we eat?
Quite right. I can't imagine what we would be stuck eating. A cold can of beans?
Do you even know how to open a can of beans, Mother?
No, I do not. Do you?
You never taught me that skill, and I haven't added that to my repertoire since I've been married. But what about you, Miss Smith graduate? Can you open a can?
Yes. I know a thing or two about the real world.
I shudder to think what awful things you ate at that school.
I can assure you that we all ate well enough. I was never left with a cold can of beans as my only option.
That is a relief, I suppose.
I don't understand you modern women. This higher education feels like an American fad. I hope it ends soon. Radicals are trying to pollute Cambridge, and even Oxford has opened its hallowed doors to females. What is the world coming to?
You disagree with coeducation, I take it?
Certainly it is a waste of time and money. Women get married, and then what was all that effort for?
To help them think for themselves?
Oh, and speaking of marriage, America seems very lax about this institution. Alice, you are well past an age to be a wife. Why are your parents still allowing this dalliance between you and Mr. Walsh?
Well, what's wrong with Charlie?
He's not husband material for a woman of your breeding, and you're too old to waste time on foolish romances. If you were in England, your parents would have put an end to it already. Americans spoil their children.
Then it's a good thing I'm an American. You are quite a bit older than me. Given your speech on the subject, I assume you are living in marital bliss.
Got the roast and fixins. Shall I carve?
Yes. I don't think any of us know how to do that. It does smell pleasant. Alice, be a dear and serve the soup.
What did I miss when I was in the kitchen?
Oh, Arthur was just about to tell me about his marital status.
The best time to marry is different for a man, of course. We need time to establish ourselves in business before seeking a wife.
You must be in your 40s, Mr. Huntington Smythe. Haven't you established yourself by now?
Dorothy, you know it is rude to mention a person's age.
I thought that was just for the ladies. Besides, Mrs. Van Dyke, what do you have to worry about? You're what, 32 at most?
You scamp. Alice, I am beginning to understand the charm of Mr. Wall.
To answer your question, Mrs. Clark, yes. I am already well established, as my mother has frequently begun to remind me. Encouragements to find a wife and begin my family have been topics of supper conversation lately.
Don't let her push you around, buddy. We men come to these things in our own time.
I don't know about that. Sometimes a gentleman needs a little nudge in the right direction. Otherwise, he is apt to wander aimlessly.
Did you nudge Daddy?
Certainly not. Your father chased me at all the social events for months before I accepted his proposal. He's a man who likes a challenge. I was on the verge of walking away until he said he would learn to play bridge.
Is that a hobby of yours?
Yes, I do enjoy a good game of bridge. The Waldorf have been having some lovely parties lately. I've even partaken in a couple of those scavenger hunt events. What a lark.
Aunt Edith, I am trying to imagine you in one of those ruckus scavenger hunts. Those can get rather wild.
Yes, some do, but I have a team of ladies who carry themselves with decorum. They also like to come out on top. There is nothing like the rush of winning, is there?
Do you partake in these hunts as well, Mrs. Clark?
That is not my sort of sport. I enjoy a bit of bird hunting. I ride horse course. And when I need more excitement, I shoot other things.
What kind of things, dear?
Only clay pigeon, currently.
What wonderful pastimes! I ride and hunt myself. When I want a thrill, I go to the racetrack, watch the thoroughbreds, and place a small wager. I believe I have a bit of a gambler in me, hence my investing in Richard.
Investing in Daddy is hardly a gamble.
Now you have a point. Since you are an equestrian, you and your husband must visit England sometime and see Ascot. It's one of the highlights of the social season.
Speaking of Uncle Richard, Aunt Edith, I feel uncomfortable eating without him. Shouldn't he have joined us by now?
He is working. That man can completely lose track of time. I usually have the kitchen send him a plate.
But, Mommy, there's no staff to take him a plate.
Goodness, you are correct. The food will be cold if he doesn't come soon. Dorothy, dear, please go to the office and collect your father. This snow servant thing is a rather trying affair.
Where will the staff get their supper or a place to spend the night?
A good question, Mr. Walsh. The butler just said they couldn't return, and they would see to themselves. They plan to be back as soon as the roads are passable. I was in such a tizzy I didn't think to ask further questions.
Come with me. Mary, I think something is wrong.
What is wrong?
Where's Uncle Richard?
What's this?
Where do you think something's wrong?
I knocked on the door, but I heard nothing. I tried the door, the handle turns, but the door won't open. It must be blocked or something. I called out Daddy, but nothing. He must be in there if the door won't open.
Richard, can you hear me? We will have to break down the door. It is too large to fuse your shoulder. Does anyone have any ideas? We're coming, Richard!
In the entry, there was a plant stand that was solid marble. Arthur, come with me. We can use it as a battering ram.
We are going to open the door and come to you, Richard.
Don't worry, Daddy. We'll be right there.
Ladies, stand back. We're going to need a bit of a running start.
No one is here. What's going on?
I see an arm. It's on the floor behind the desk.
Everyone stop. Don't move or touch anything. I'm going to take a look.
Is Richard still breathing?
I'm sorry, Mrs. Van Dyke.
Oh, Richard.
I need everyone to leave. I need to look the room over. Alice, can you take them somewhere out of the way?
I will take everyone to the parlor. We'll wait there for you.
Thanks, doll.
And Charlie,
Yeah,
come as quick as you can, okay?
I promise.
Now, a word from our sponsor.
Have you ever prayed that the stain on your favorite shirt will just disappear? There are so many laundry soap flakes on your grocer's shelves. How do you know the one that gets your clothes looking the best? Grab a box of immaculate lather. Every box of pure white flakes is blessed before it arrives on your shelves. The only thing missing is an angel to do your ironing. Make sure your clothes have that new soul feel. Buy immaculate lather. Look for the crucifix label.
Alice, dear, is there a chance your young man is mistaken?
I'm afraid not, Aunt Edith. If he says Uncle Richard is, well, then he must be.
I hate the idea of Daddy laying there alone. This is unbearable.
And yet we must bear it. I have an advantage, of course, being English. Can I get anyone a whiskey? It is a good cure for a bad shock.
Definitely.
I think a double is in order, Arthur. Thank you.
I won't say no. And if you could pour one out for Charlie, that would be nice.
Certainly. Playing bartender helps keep one's mind off things, you know.
Oh, Richard.
Mother, maybe you should slow down a little with that whiskey?
On the contrary, Doctor dear, I can speed things up a bit. Arthur, could I trouble you for another?
All right, if you are sure, Mrs. Van Dyke.
I've never been more certain.
Charlie, I'm glad you're back. What happened to Uncle Richard? A heart attack?
No. I'm sorry to give you this upsetting news, but it can't be helped. Mr. Van Dyke did not die of natural causes.
What?
Are you positive, young man?
I'm sure. Not a lot of mystery when someone's been bludgeoned to death.
Oh! Who could have murdered Uncle Richard and why?
That's what I'm going to try to figure out. Everyone get comfortable. This is going to take a while.
Goodness.
Oh my
I'll be looking
God.
at
my
it.
goodness, it's
Just
just
stay
Uncle
put.
Richard.
Stay
I don't
put.
know
No,
what to
we're-
do.
everybody
Kill
just-
him.
everybody
Oh
just
my
stay
goodness.
put.
You are talking about my husband. I believe I deserve to know exactly what you found, Mr. Walsh.
Thankfully, some parts of this are pretty clear. Your husband was struck from behind with a fire poker with considerable force.
How do you know it was a poker?
The poker was laying next to his body with blood on it. There were no signs of a struggle. The office wasn't torn apart or anything. Mr. Van Dyke didn't have any protective wounds as if he was defending himself. Likely he was struck from behind and by someone he knew and trusted enough to turn his back on.
Some crazed person must have come in and killed him. Maybe a robbery gone wrong.
Oh, Aunt Edith, that won't work. Can't you see?
No, I do not.
A storm. No one could have gotten in or out.
It could have happened much earlier in the day. We don't know. It could have been one of the servants.
Mother, really? That's a bit far.
It doesn't work out. His body wasn't cold enough for his death to have happened more than a few hours ago. I would say it happened sometime after Alice and I arrived, give or take an hour. I'm no sawbones.
Seems to me it was a crime of passion. Since whoever did it used the fire poker, we can assume they just grabbed the nearest thing handy.
Be careful making assumptions. We don't have enough facts. It could have been a weapon of opportunity, or someone could have been planning this. First, we need to go around the room. I want to hear where each of you were before dinner.
Mr. Walsh, I don't know who you think you are. A tragedy has befallen this house. The women are overcome by shock. It would be the best to telephone the police and let them handle this. You are taking liberties by assuming command.
I tried to call the local cops, but the line is dead.
It's the storm. It happens all the time here.
And besides, Mr. Huntington Smythe, the police are already here, so you don't have to worry about that.
Really? How did they get here if no one called them?
Charlie is talking about himself. I didn't get a chance to introduce him properly at dinner. Everyone say hello to Detective Charles Walsh of the NYPD.
You're a flatfoot. Well, I think that's the term. I heard it used in a movie.
Flatfoot refers to a beat cop. I'm a detective. I investigate the more serious crimes, like homicide. I'm going to do my best to treat this like any other case.
But this isn't any other case. This is my father. Maybe Mother is correct and some maniac came in off the street.
Dot, this is hardly just off the street. We're out in the woods, not exactly a place for a random crime.
Order and methodology will get us to an answer, folks. We are going to start with where you were from about the time I arrived until dinner.
How can I be expected to answer questions with my husband lying dead just feet away? Isn't this cruel and unusual punishment or something? Arthur, my glass is empty. Can you do something about that?
Right away, Mrs. Van Dyke.
Well, Charlie and I arrived together. Dot welcomed us and then went away. Charlie and I were in each other's company until about the last 30 minutes before dinner so we could dress.
That sounds like a convenient answer.
Oh, come on. We were the last to arrive, and Charlie has never even been here, so it is unlikely either of us could have killed Uncle Richard. Do you really think I'd hurt anyone, Dot?
You? Probably not. But your young man? We'll have to see.
Hey, you don't even know me.
That's the point.
Okay then, Mrs. Clark. So where did you go after you left Alice and me?
It's not very exciting. After fulfilling my hostess duties, I went to my room to read for a while. I didn't want to be disturbed. The book had gotten to a very interesting part. I dressed early for dinner, then came here to the parlor.
What did you do here?
Not much. I listened to the wireless and had an aperitif before eating.
Did you see or hear anything?
I'm afraid not. With the wireless on, it's difficult to hear anything that wasn't nearby.
This room faces the front of the property. Did you see anyone coming or going?
I already said I saw nothing. If I'd seen someone, I would have mentioned it. Clearly, your fancy education didn't give you any common sense.
That helps eliminate the possibility of someone coming in off the street, at least during that time.
I don't imagine I'm much help.
You can never know what will be useful, so I don't want you to leave anything out.
Aunt Edith, I know this is hard, but we need to know where you were and what you saw and heard.
Like Dorothy, I doubt I will be of much use. When you arrived, I was in the morning room, which, if you recall, faces the woods in the back. I had some letters that needed to be finished. Various charities and social groups, you understand. Thankfully, the room is not far from the main hall where the telephone is, because a call came through. It was the servants. Due to the horrible road conditions, they are no longer able to return to the house safely. What a nuisance. None of this would be useful, but you said tell you everything.
That's right. Go on.
I took notes from the cook about our meal. Thankfully, a roast was already in the oven. Soup was left warming on the stove before they left. And then there was the apple pie completed. The butler had set the table, and all the serving dishes were set out in the pantry. Even the wine had been brought up and decanted before they left. It could have been much worse, I suppose. Hopefully, they will be back tomorrow, and we can have the plum pudding as usual. Richard did love that plum pudding.
You are bearing up well, considering the circumstances. It's most admirable. Can I get you another drink?
I think she's had enough. What did you do after the call, Aunt Edith?
I went to my room and got dressed. I rushed down to the kitchen in my attempt to get the food onto the dishes and platters. That is where you found me, at 6s and 7s.
I think you did a wonderful job, Mama, given the circumstances.
Thank you, dear. One tries their best.
I believe that leaves you, Mr. Huntington Smythe. What secrets do you have to share with the group?
Alas, this will be a bit of a snorer, I'm afraid. Richard was off doing whatever creative geniuses do, so I was left to my own devices like everyone else. Instead of a book, I chose the more manly game of snooker in the billiards room. I couldn't tell you how long I was in there. Playing the game by yourself often makes a minute feel like an hour. My sense of time had just vanished completely after the 4th time around the table. When I couldn't push the balls around any longer, I took myself to the hall to look at the art. You've curated quite a wonderful and varied collection.
Thank you. I do enjoy finding paintings that speak to me.
They must say beautiful things because they are lovely. I tried the phone to call my New York contacts, but the line was down. It must have been after Mrs. Van Dyke's conversation. I resigned myself to failure, headed up to dress, and then came back down when I heard the gong. Isn't it amazing how we all just managed to miss each other? I missed Mrs. Van Dyke in the hall and was unaware of Mrs. Clark in the parlour. Seems as if no one saw anyone else.
Correct. Leaving no one with a solid alibi.
Alibi? Why would I need an alibi? As if I would kill my own husband. You have gone too far, young man. You forget you are a guest in my home. You should have some manners. Alice, next time you visit, please come with someone who understands etiquette, or come alone.
Oh, Aunt Edith, this is murder. I think we can forego etiquette this once.
What would your mother say? If the sky was falling and the world was coming to an end, we would not abandon good manners, just like those gentlemen on the Titanic. That is the difference between us and them. I've had enough of this interrogation. I am going to bed. Good night.
I think you have the right idea, Mother. I am wrung out.
Yes, it doesn't seem like we're getting very far on this line of inquiry. Good evening, everyone.
Wait a minute. Charlie, you told us about the details of Uncle Richard's body, but you didn't explain the door. We had to break it down.
Yes, you and Mr. Huntington Smythe had to break the door down.
I know. I haven't figured that part out yet. How did a man get bludgeoned to death from behind in a locked room? I'm going to need to sleep on that one. I suggest everyone lock their doors. Someone in this house is a killer.
Tune in next week for the next thrilling episode. You've been listening to A Deadly Holiday on the Hudson, an Alice and Charlie mystery. Written by Jacqui Lentz and Kevin Underwood. Produced by Jacqui Lentz. Jacqui Just Chatters sends a big thank you to our cast of players, which includes Samantha Jenkins as Miss Alice Van Dyke, Stephen Hampee as Mr. Charlie Walsh, Sonia Moore as Mrs. Dorothy Clark, Holly Amirandi as Mrs. Edith Van Dyke, Ben Dre as Arthur Huntington Smythe, Samantha Nephew as Commercial Girl. Theme music, Mystery by Paul Beese and his Novelty Orchestra.